There's power in the factory, power in the land, power in the hand of the worker. But it all amounts to nothing if together we don't stand. There is power in our union. Now the lessons of the pastoral world with workers' blood, with strikes on.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Mans, and I'd like to welcome you to the April 4th Coalition Show. This is the August 28th, 2023 edition of the show. It is the 468th show that we have done since the closing of North Adams Regional Hospital, and the 8th show that we have done since the announcement of its possible reopening sometime in the future. The April 4th Coalition's mission statement is: we are for workers' rights and collective bargaining rights and are against tax breaks for the rich and corporations who ship our jobs overseas. We support all the articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but as is our custom, we put the emphasis on Article 23 at the start of the show. Dick, would you lead us off?
Yes. Article 23, Section 1. Everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work, and protection against unemployment. Number 2, everyone, without any discrimination, has the right to equal pay for equal work.
Number 3, everyone who works has the right to just and favorable remuneration, which is like compensation, pay, whatever form it takes, ensuring for himself or herself and his or her family an existence worthy of human dignity and supplemented, if necessary, by other means of social protection. Michael.
Number 4, everyone has the right to form and join trade unions for the protection of his or her interests.
And as is our custom, we do a thank you to Michael Putnam, who we believe is still the program director for WMNB LP 107.1, which is the community radio station, for airing the audio portions of our show on Fridays at 6 p.m. And to the wonderful staff here at Northern Berkshire Community Television who help us produce on our show. We couldn't do it without Joanne Hurlbut, Nicole Brown, and David Fabiano. We thank you for your help. And Dick, today is an anniversary of a significant civil rights movement.
Yeah, today is the 60th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King's March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. And it was commemorated last Saturday on the Mall at the Lincoln Memorial. And I'm glad, Susan, you could join us, and Michael, you could be here. And to set us off on this remembrance of Martin Luther King, because in his speech he talked about not only having a dream, but he also talked about a promissory note, a check that was guaranteed to every American, no matter who they were, that they had a promissory note. And at this time, that promissory note in 1963 was marked insufficient funds. They hadn't given the full freedom, the jobs, to all the people of America. But in that, since 1963 to today, people have been working hard. And I'd like to take a second to read from this book, Peace is Every Step, by Thich Nhat Hanh, a Vietnamese Buddhist monk who did influence Martin Luther King during that time period. But this chapter, it's called Waging Peace. If the earth were your body, you would be able to feel the many areas where it is suffering. War, political and economic oppression, famine, and pollution wreak havoc in so many places. Every day, children are becoming blind from malnutrition, their hands searching hopelessly through mounds of trash for a few ounces of food. Adults are dying slowly in prisons for trying to oppose violence. Rivers are drying, and the air is becoming more and more difficult to breathe. Although the two great superpowers are becoming a little more friendly, they still have enough nuclear weapons to destroy the earth dozens of times. Many people are aware of the world's suffering. Their hearts are filled with compassion. They know what needs to be done, and they engage in political, social, and environmental work to try to change things. But after a period of intense involvement, they may become discouraged if they lack the strength needed to sustain a life of action. Real strength is not power, money, or weapons, but in deep inner peace. Practicing mindfulness in each moment of our daily lives, we can cultivate our own peace. With clarity, determination, and patience, the fruits of meditation, we can sustain a life of action and be real instruments of peace. I have seen this peace in the people of various religious, cultural backgrounds who spend their time and energy protecting the weak, struggling for social justice, lessening the disparity between the rich and the poor, stopping the arms race, fighting against discrimination, and watering the trees of love and understanding throughout the world. It seems, this was written, back in
First 68, obviously.
it was, I think this was written in 1992, 1991, but that probably was, I think it resonates, but I think we should take that and let's look at a news item about the commemoration of the 60th anniversary of
Martin
Martin Luther King's speech on the March on Washington.
60 years ago today, more than 200,000 people from all across the country gathered in our nation's capital for the March on Washington. It was the day Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave his I Have a Dream speech. Chrissy Diaz joining us in studio this morning with more on that historic moment and really what it means for people still today, Christy.
250,000 people gathering together 60 years ago, and for the anniversary, thousands gathered again over the weekend on the National Mall. Saturday's event was smaller than the historic 1963 gathering, but marchers and speakers vowed to continue battling racism and inequities to fulfill Martin Luther King's dream. Now, leaders here in Atlanta say it's clear America has made progress, but there is still much work to be done. Michael Julian Bond, a longtime Atlanta City Council member and son of late civil rights leader Julian Bond, says the fact he's on the council is proof things have improved for the Black community. His father actually led the group to desegregate facilities here in Atlanta, and now, because of that, his son serves on the council. But he says many of the same struggles they were fighting for 60 years ago, like the fight for voting rights, housing rights, educational opportunities, and access to health care, still remains.
The original march was about jobs and freedom, and we seem to still be in pursuit of the freedom part of that equation. At every level and every facet of society, we've been demanding that, and 60 years later, we're still demanding that, and we need to keep the pressure on for the country that we all love so much.
Saturday's march in D.C. was billed as a continuation, not a commemoration. One man called it a booster shot after 60 years.
I agree with that. I mean, every time you take two steps forward, there always feels like something's pushing you back one step with things in society. And definitely the key to keeping the tears is if you control the education, keep the economic equation out of them. You don't have the same freedom throughout the society. I mean, nobody has to be super rich. Just everybody has to be on a level so that they can explore what they want to be and become. And it shouldn't matter what the tint of the skin is.
Right.
I remember the march. I was 15 then, and I and my father, we watched it on TV and discussed it, and I was glad that I was able to be there at that particular time and really feel, the impact that it had on me, my father, and my sister, and my mom. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yep. Mike, anything?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I did. Me and a few people did march on Washington, D.C. I mean, we did it at that time for the homeless. And, had to get a bus to take us up there and all that. Everything else. Once you do it, it's a great experience. Not everybody agrees with you. even up there where it's supposed to be all pro-housing, get more housing and all that, and that's what we're fighting for. Some people still don't like the idea of being outspoken. But I'll tell you something, I've seen those horses. Those horses are big. I had one right next to me too. I said, don't let anybody get wild. That's one thing I don't want to do is get bumped by him, because I too, man.
Unfortunately, that date was chosen, August 28th today, because it was the anniversary of the lynching of Emmett Till. And that's why the day was, and unfortunately, last Saturday, while this booster shot
Was going on.
was going on, there was also literally shots fired in Jacksonville, Florida. So let's listen to that news report.
3 people are killed in Jacksonville, Florida today after what appears to be a racially motivated hate crime. Police say the suspect went into a Dollar General store targeting African Americans. He was armed with a handgun, AR-style rifle, and bulletproof vest. Police say after killing the victims, he turned the gun on himself, and one of the guns had 2 swastikas on it. Police did get a warning from the man's father, but it was already too late.
At 1:18 p.m., he texted his father and told his father to check his computer. At 1:53 p.m., the shooter's family members called the Clay County Sheriff's Office. By that time, he had already begun shooting in Jacksonville.
The shooter is described as a white man in his early 20s, and apparently he left behind several manifestos.
Perfect dichotomy. That the hope is still there, but the hate is there as well.
And it's growing.
And it's
You know,
growing.
I read about this incident on Saturday morning. I was reading Sunday morning, I was reading the Washington Post. I don't know if it was maybe Saturday afternoon or whatever, and in that article, it talked about the rise of hate crimes across the country. And then I was really surprised to find out that Massachusetts, according to the Anti-Defamation League, is like almost second in the country behind Texas in hate crimes. I was, maybe I misunderstood it. I said, geez, I'm gonna have to do some research. So I got some news video from Massachusetts, and we're gonna show it right now. It has a representative of the New England Anti-Defamation League on it. So I think it's a Boston TV station talking about white supremacists in Massachusetts.
Anti-Semitic incidents in the U.S. and in New England are now at a record high. The Anti-Defamation League released a new report today that finds the number of reports in Massachusetts were up 41% in 2022 compared to 2021. Nationally, they're up 30. It's recorded the 6th highest number of incidents per state in the country. And joining me now is the Anti-Defamation League's New England Interim Regional Director, Peggy Schuker. Peggy, thanks so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you for having me.
And, you know, among the numbers that we just talked about, can you share some of the other disturbing findings that came in this report, because they are disturbing?
You know, there are many disturbing things to see numbers like this continuing to go up especially in New England, a place that we associate with being one of the birthplaces of American freedom. But at the same time, we've seen a particularly disturbing increase in the number of anti-Semitic incidents that have occurred in people's homes. Seeing swastikas in your own front yard is a deep and enduring trauma for both the residents of that home and everyone who passes by. We've seen banners over freeway overpasses saying such hateful messages as Jews did 9/11. Again, it's counted as one incident, but everybody who drives by and sees that is a victim.
And of course, the immediate question is, why? What do you believe is driving the increase in these types of incidents right now in these last few years?
Yeah, there are a number of reasons that we can point to. We have seen these numbers go up in the past several years, and we've seen an increase in white extremist activity in the area as well. A few weeks ago, we released a report on white extremist propaganda, showing that Massachusetts ranked just behind Texas in terms of sheer number of incidents of that type. And a large portion of those incidents are anti-Semitic. But at the same time, we are living in a time where people are exposed to a lot of misinformation and disinformation on a lot of dark channels on the internet and otherwise. And there's coupled with a normalization of making those hateful statements in the public sphere. It's become sort of, commonplace for politicians, elected officials to use anti-Semitic dog whistles and references, really building on some of the oldest anti-Semitic tropes there are. So those factors tend to embolden others to act on their hate. And we believe that's part of what we're seeing today.
Yep. And you kind of referred to this. We consider ourselves extremely sophisticated and well-educated around here. Were you surprised to see Massachusetts with the 6th highest number of incidents in the country?
I really wasn't surprised because my job is to do a lot of the intake for these incidents when members of the community come to us. So what I saw were numbers that bore out what I really expected. But what is really telling is that for many people, they believe that Massachusetts is immune from being among the leaders in states or areas that have a lot of anti-Semitic or other hateful activity. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. And these numbers, I hope, will put that myth to rest. Anti-Semitism is not a problem of the past. It's a current problem, and it's a problem right here.
Sure. There have been a couple of high-profile white supremacist rallies, as you point out, that have taken place in the last year in Massachusetts. Why do you think these groups target Massachusetts?
These groups are targeting areas where they're going to get the biggest sort of media presence, the biggest hit with their own communities, playing to their own base. So doing something that has the dramatic effect as marching through Boston Common around the 4th of July, holding up a racist sign during, the St. Patrick's Day parade, as happened last year, protesting outside, one of the finest hospitals in the world, outside the Brigham, when they were protesting against healthcare equity. I mean, it just helps them amplify their message.
To put this in perspective for people, what percentage of the population in the U.S. are Jewish people?
Yeah, it's a very small percent, just about 2%.
About 2%. But yet, Jewish people among incidents like this, where there are people making attacks, represent an enormous number of those, right?
That is true, but anti-Semitism is known as one of the oldest hatreds in the world. So there is a long history of anti-Semitism worldwide, and in periods of a lot of economic or social or political uncertainty, and we're just coming out of this period of COVID, people look for scapegoats. They invoke conspiracy theories. And that is also part of the reason for this spike in anti-Semitism right now.
It's just bizarre. What do you think we as a community can do to reverse this kind of trend and these types of incidents?
Well, I think one thing is education. And a lot of the incidents that come our way are incidents that happen in schools. And the more educators who respond to those situations as teachable moments, as happened in a local school where an image of a sneaker with a swastika instead of the Swish logo was airdropped to a number of students. That school had a really a textbook best practices response. They not only worked with the student who shared that image, but they worked with the classmates who were also victims of seeing that and turned it into a teachable moment for both. So education is one very important thing. A second thing is reporting these incidents. As I mentioned, many people do not believe that anti-Semitism is a problem right here, right now in Massachusetts. So when you see it, when you experience it, you can report it to ADL very simply on our website. Having these numbers allows us to get public attention to an issue that is really a very real issue and one that is harmful to many people in our communities. And the third thing is to really exercise your muscle in speaking out. Speak out if some hateful act occurs in your community, even if you weren't the targeted group. Letting the people who have been targeted know that you are with them, that you see them, that you understand the pain and the harm that they suffer from an incident is a really important role that each of us can play.
Peggy Schuker, who is the interim regional director for the Anti-Defamation League of New England. Thanks so much for
My
speaking
pleasure.
with me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That, I'm assessing it now because I'm trying to think. There were, when I was in Pittsfield, there were incidents because they have a really large synagogue down there in Pittsfield, so I was semi-aware when I was growing up about anti-Semitism. But we always think like Massachusetts is a blue state. It's not really a blue state. It's a blue-leaning state. It's got more independent voters than anything else. So it's another myth about Massachusetts that goes down, that hate doesn't exist here, that come here, you're safe, it's compassionate, when truth is hate exists everywhere everywhere, not only in the country but in the world. And it's so easy to unleash it, and it's been unleashed. And fixing it is the hardest problem this society is facing at this time, because we're not getting it from the leaders. I mean, maybe Massachusetts we are to a certain extent, but I don't hear Elizabeth Warren talking about it, going around the state, like, discussing this issue. She's more focused on what she wants. Ed Markey gives a good speech every now and then, but he's not educating anybody.
Yeah. Well, it's up to us in the community to really step forward and, report incidents that we have and stand up, against it, whether it be racism, anti-Semitism, or anything else, marginalizing people. We're all human beings and deserve respect. And that's the most important thing, that we show compassion, not hatred towards someone that might be different. I mean, in watching these videos and trying to pick them out for the show, I was looking for one about racism, and I did find one, but it just seemed like it didn't fit exactly, in Massachusetts. But they were talking about Everett, Massachusetts, and this woman who, the majority of people in Everett now are of color, but it's hard for them, Black people or Hispanic, to get on the city council. And they said something that I often say, people say, are you from North Adams? I say, born and raised. Well, they said that was sort of like a catchword for, I can be in power, born and raised. Whereas someone that's been here since they're 5 years old, but the color of their skin is black, all of a sudden they're an outsider, because they don't get an opportunity to participate in the powers of government. But what we have to do is practice good citizenship. And in that speech from when that woman spoke from the ADL, she talked about social context, that when things are bad, unstable, then people tend to go listen to people who are blaming someone else and whatever. And we have an opportunity to stand up for people here in Massachusetts right now. I encourage people to buy a subscription to the Berkshire Eagle, because, you get good information from this paper. You might not agree with everything that's written in it.
No, they're not designed to be what you agree with.
They provide a social foundation. And here's an article that was in Friday's paper, August 25th. It says, these cuts cannot stand. Healy's budget vetoes devastating to Berkshire programs. Vetoes of $205 million in spending across the state will have a devastating impact on the community programs that serve thousands of local families. That was the message Thursday from the heads of two organizations offering such programs in the Berkshires, the Berkshire Community Action Council and Berkshire County Head Start. When Governor Maura Healey signed the proposed $56 billion budget for fiscal year 2024 earlier this month, she vetoed 3 line items that would have provided millions of dollars of funding to programs crucial to providing services to low-income families. The cuts include about $7.7 million in funding that was to go to community action agencies throughout the state, and $35 million that was meant to cover salaries, rate fundings for center-based
services.
Trying to find out where I am now. Centers, early educators, and $1 million in the support for grants to Head Start programs. These are very important programs for people, especially in Berkshire County. And so contact your state representative and state senator to ask them to override the governor's veto. Because,
Right.
you know, Community Action and Head Start are proven programs.
There, and they're on, and I doubt that Governor Healy has given a reason for why she's cutting them at this point.
Well, she did give a reason
She
in
did?
here. She more or less said that the Governor Healy slash funds in fiscal year 24 budget that would do just that. Well, let's see, no, I'm sorry.
Might not be in this article.
It was in the article that she sort of said there are other parts of the budget that cover it, but it's not true. That
No,
this was
there is nothing that
this
covers
money,
Head Start.
that money that was going to these programs was interpreted by the Healy administration as being money that was set up because of the pandemic. And the people at Community Action and Head Start said, no, we've been trying to get this money for a long, long time. It happened when they got extra money because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
They put it into these programs. But that didn't mean that that's where the need arose.
No, the need is all-
The need
need
is
is
there. And I encourage people to go to the Berkshire Eagle and read Friday's article about that. And it was also mentioned in
this
Thursday's
it
paper
was-
also. So I think a subscription to the Berkshire Eagle is a good investment. It may seem like a lot of money, but they let you know what's going on. Like one of these, in here, they announced that there's a meeting coming up for, in North Adams, I think this coming Wednesday, on the flood control chutes and the work that's
Yeah.
going to be done in North
That was
Adams.
it,
So
right.
that's going to be at the UNO Center at 5:30 to
I think it's
7:30
Yeah, I think
this
it's Wednesday.
This
I think it's Wednesday. Yeah,
So,
'cause
you
I
know,
was-
I'm going to
I
try.
was talking to them at the
Yeah,
Motorama.
I'm going to try to go there. I didn't see them at the Motorama. I didn't spend enough time there, but I want to encourage
They-
them
they- they were
to
tucked in a
do
corner.
some economic development through those flood control chutes. Maybe they could start generating some electricity from
Mm-hmm.
that river, you know.
That would be nice. Just getting the flood chutes in would be,
Yeah.
better working would be
And
an improvement for North
I
Adams.
communication with Healy one time up on Mohawk Trail, and we talked to her, you know, she was a small group of people. And what she told, I told her, I said, you know, it's nice meeting you here. I said, I'd like to see you come to North Adams at least one time so people can talk to you. Well, we're still waiting.
No, actually,
No,
she
we did
came.
meet with her, Mike.
She
I just
came.
have to correct you on
Oh,
that
I
because
did?
she came and as Attorney General, we met with her about the hospital, North
Oh,
County Cares Coalition. We met with her and
Okay.
talked to her.
I didn't remember.
And she's come since she's
right.
been elected governor. She was
Okay.
here
Yeah.
twice so far.
But no,
Is
it's
she
okay to
talk-
bring it up. I think she should come here again to listen to what
To the
people at
people-
Head
what those
Start
cuts are
and
gonna do.
Community Action and what's going to happen there. I mean, I'm not totally against Maura Healy, but sometimes people make mistakes and we have an opportunity to correct those mistakes. We should organize and help because, again, on that whole theme of anti-Semitism and racism, you know, it's about poverty too.
It is.
You know, and when you address poverty and income inequality, a lot of those other problems seem to go away. If you know, it's not a zero-sum game.
Right.
Where if you have enough, that means I got to have less. There's enough for everybody. But you know, we say power to the people. It's almost time.
It's
As
that
far
time.
as-
Go ahead, Sue.
As far as anti-Semitism, I was married into a Jewish family, and that was in the 70s, and anti-Semitism and hate was definitely there
Thank
back
you.
then.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to say power to the people. See you next month.
Oh, so soon?
Power to the people.
There's power in the factory, power in the land, power in the hand of the worker. But it all amounts to nothing if together we don't stand. There is power in a union. Now the lessons of the past were all learned with workers' blood. Mistakes of the bosses we must fight for. From the cities and the farmlands to trenches full of mud. Wars always been the bosses' wives.